Trump is threatening punishing tariffs on Mexico and Canada.
Donald Trump brought out some of his best words. For example, wonderful.
We need to re-secure our border as part of this plan, Mr. Speaker.
The Americans have seen a doubling of the number of contacts at the Canadian border. So they're beginning to see that illegal migrants are using Canada's staging area to get into the United States.
One illegal going across the border back and forth is one too many illegals.
Have to screen people coming into our country. We have to identify threats and interrupt them before they harm us or our allies.
2 provincial premiers want to blow up the new NAFTA and cut Mexico out of a future trade deal with the United States.
Mexico has not been that equal partner with the United States.
We do a bilateral trade deal with the U.S.
There are 4.9 million permits and visas for people that will run in Canada today who are not citizens or permanent residents that will run out in December of next year. Many of them are great people, but when their permits run out and they're not renewed, they must leave.
Ending his Truth Social post by claiming she agreed to, quote, stop migration through Mexico and into the United States. Scheinbaum actually just responded moments ago, and the short version is never, no, not once, did she say anything of the kind.
One tariff will follow another in response, and so on, until we put our common businesses at risk.
All of this to say that we need to put our country and our people first. We will have a warrior culture, not a woke one.
I think we need to take a bilateral approach. Put Canada first.
Canada first, Canada last, Canada always.
All right, so here's the fit. Very bratty, very cute. Only thing though is that I have a witch's hat that I was gonna wear with this because I totally wanted to go for like green witch with like a slash of bratty. However, I am moving, henceforth. I packed my witch's hat, so now I'm just gonna wear a hat that I found in my laundry room. I thought on me it looked very gay, so we're here. By now, I'm sure everybody has heard of the tariffs that Donald Trump is planning on putting on Canada, Mexico, and China. For Canada and Mexico, he is planning on putting on 25% tariffs. He believes that this will help solve the drug crisis and will also encourage Canada and Mexico to solve the American drug crisis for them. Even though 80% of drugs that are coming across the American border down south are coming from American-born people, like citizens of America. Also, not to mention how ironic it is considering the fact that the majority of illegal guns that come into Canada and Mexico are literally from America as well.
El 70% de las armas ilegales incautadas a delincuentes en México proviene de su país.
American guns keep coming. The latest stats show in Ontario alone, 90% of traced crime-related handguns come from the U.S., most from Texas.
After hearing the news about these tariffs, conservative premiers like Doug Ford got super upset. Doug Ford claiming that it was a stab in the heart from a family member.
I found his comments unfair. I found them insulting. It's like a family member stabbing you right in the heart.
In between him racistly saying that Canada is nothing like Mexico and that he was entirely insulted by the fact that America and Trump would ever compare us to such a terrible place.
What I found unfair about the comments is to compare us to Mexico. And I can tell you, Canada is no Mexico. When it comes to drugs, 1 ounce of any illegal drug is 1 ounce too many going back and forth across the border. 1 illegal going across the border back and forth is 1 too many illegals.
Even going as far as to say that Canada is nothing like Mexico. Which I have to agree. Canada is nothing like Mexico, because in comparison to what Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party is doing, currently floundering and trying to pander to conservative politicians, including Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago currently, today, November 30th.
You can see here now that the Prime Minister's plane has landed at the airport in West Palm Beach, Florida. He is on his way to Mar-a-Lago, where he will have dinner with President-elect Donald Trump. Now, this, of course, comes in a very difficult week when Donald Trump put on his social media feeds on Monday night that he would slap a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States from both Canada and from Mexico, unless those countries made efforts to stop the flow of people and fentanyl across their borders. This caused extreme urgency amongst the Canadian and American and Mexican business populations. This unplanned flight by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, so not unplanned, unknown flight of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc to Florida to meet with Donald Trump tonight to talk about this.
Prime Minister Trudeau is back in Canada tonight after this brief trip, making his case to the president-elect to drop his threat to charge a 25% tariff on goods imported from Canada and Mexico unless they stop the flow of undocumented migrants and drugs across their borders into the U.S. The Prime Minister describing their conversation as excellent, while Mr. Trump called it a very productive meeting. But it's still unclear whether the two reached an agreement that would prevent Mr. Trump from imposing the tariffs on day one of his new term, a promise that could charge Americans more for critical goods from Canada like crude oil, gas, produce, and car parts.
On the other hand, the leader of Mexico is actually trying to retaliate against Donald Trump.
Nuestro punto de vista, y además va a haber otras conversaciones de aquí a que él tome posesión entre los equipos, pues lo importante era atender el planteamiento que él hizo, por lo cual pondría aranceles.
Siguiendo con este tema, Presidenta, ¿cómo impactará esta potencial guerra arancelaria la revisión del tema?
No va a haber potencial guerra arancelaria.
¿No?
Él plantea justamente que el tema de la migración en la frontera sur de ellos, norte nuestra, y el tema del fentanilo, pues son dos temas que le preocupan, y ese era el argumento, digamos, para poner los aranceles.
Donald Trump brought out some of his best words, for example, wonderful, to describe a conversation with Mexico's Claudia Sheinbaum, ending his Truth Social post by claiming she agreed to, quote, stop migration through Mexico and into the United States. Sheinbaum actually just responded moments ago, and the short version is never, no, not once, did she say anything of the kind. Sheinbaum on X was writing, we reiterate that Mexico's position is not to close borders, but to build bridges between governments and between peoples.
In a letter to Trump yesterday, Sheinbaum warned of dire consequences for the U.S. economy, saying one tariff will follow another in response and so on until we put our common businesses at risk.
Las drogas sintéticas no las consumimos nosotros.
Sheinbaum read the letter aloud at a press conference, suggesting Mexico could impose its own retaliatory tariffs.
Unlike our politicians and our current Prime Minister, who currently seems to be planning on bending the knee and completely following whatever Donald Trump says. Because for some reason right now, Canadian politicians, especially the conservative ones, are treating Donald Trump as if he is the almighty Lord and Savior.
Well, they should have seen this coming a mile away. President Trump had been saying that he would do this. He was elected 3 weeks ago. You'd think the Prime Minister would have been furiously planning and preparing, meeting with the premiers and talking about a counter plan during that time. And now we learn that since the threat happened, he's come up with exactly one response. A Zoom call. By the way, we were able to help our American friends destroy ISIS and Al-Qaeda. At that time, they had no concerns about us carrying our weight because we were punching above our weight, which protected our security and our economy. Mr. Speaker, we have to screen people coming into our country. We have to identify threats and interrupt them before they harm us or our allies. There are 4.9 million permits and visas for people that will in Canada today who are not citizens or permanent residents that will run out in December of next year. Many of them are great people, but when their permits run out and they're not renewed, they must leave. We need a plan from the government on how they're going to get these millions of people to go back to their home country, not be tempted by a stronger U.S. economy to cross into the U.S., thus threatening the security of the border and turning the Americans against us. All of this to say that we need to put our country and our people first.
Yeah, I don't think we can go to the table with a yeah, but you need our oil so we don't have to take care of these other things that you're concerned about. I think it's a yes and. Yes, we can take care of these things and we can continue to have a great trade relationship, but we have to take seriously the issues that the administration is saying. He wants us to solve these problems because he could have not telegraphed that at all, and then we would have been hit with it on January 20th. And so now we've got 2 months to be able to come together as provinces and with the federal government to address these concerns in a meaningful way. Let's talk with the Americans in terms that they will understand based on the new objectives of the new administration.
Now, these most recent comments from Doug Ford aren't the only things that Doug Ford has been saying about Mexico. Not too long ago, when everybody was covering how Danielle Smith is 1,000% sure that she wants to kick Mexico out of the U.S., Mexico, and Canada deal, like the Triforce of trade in North America.
Canada and the U.S. has always had more balanced trade. I think we've got to deal with this situation as we find it with our most important trading partner. We certainly cannot sacrifice our relationship and friendship with our largest trading partner if this is a trade irritant. And that's why I'm committed to a Canada first approach. If we can get a bilateral agreement, I think that would allow for us to be able to avoid tariffs and have a really constructive relationship with the United States.
Doug Ford also thought it was a good idea to try to pander to the MAGA regime by kicking Mexico out of this Triforce of trade.
Do you agree with Ontario Premier Doug Ford that maybe Mexico should be cut out of the process if it won't comply with sort of the spirit of the USMCA? That seems to be what you just said there. Am I understanding you correctly?
1,000%. And I had a chance to talk to Premier Doug Ford about it. And so I'm very much in sync with what he has to say.
Other provinces are also focused on Canada's most important trading partner, with Ontario Premier Doug Ford proposing to kick Mexico out of the North American Trade Pact over concerns it has become a backdoor for Chinese goods.
What I'm proposing to the federal government, we do a bilateral trade deal with the U.S., and if Mexico wants a bilateral trade deal with Canada, God bless them. But I'm not going to be drawn down with these cheap imports taking men and women's jobs from hardworking Ontarians.
Now, terrible comments like this, again, aren't anything new for Doug Ford. If you've been paying attention to politics at all, since Doug Ford became premier, you would know that not only is he incredibly racist, but he is also extremely ableist as well. Literally saying that he doesn't want violent autistics to be in a nice neighborhood because they will bring down the property values. So, yeah, he's like a mega NIMBY. Maybe a MAGA NIMBY. However, with these most recent comments from Doug Ford, I found it completely ironic that he was so disgusted by the fact that we are compared to Mexico, especially considering the fact that a huge chunk of mines in Mexico are currently owned by Canada.
Quitaría concesiones a canadienses. Las empresas mineras de origen canadiense no solo se han llevado el oro y la plata de nuestro país, sino que también se han enriquecido a costa de violaciones de los derechos humanos y la contaminación del medio ambiente. Para que dimensionemos el tamaño de esta industria de nuestro país, de las 238 minas que operan en México, 151 son canadienses. Se calcula que el 70% de las minas que operan en el país producen oro y plata, y el 68% de estas son propiedad de corporaciones canadienses. Diversos especialistas han estimado que durante los últimos 20 años se han extraído de México 5 veces más oro que el que se extrajo, escúchenlo bien ustedes, durante los 300 años del periodo colonial. La mayor parte de estos proyectos mineros son a cielo abierto, prohibidos en los llamados países desarrollados, pero permitidos en el suelo mexicano. Generaron deforestación, sobreexplotación y contaminación intensiva, provocando además problemas de salud en zonas cuyos habitantes viven en condiciones de extrema pobreza. Es importante recordar que las facilidades para el saqueo de la riqueza mexicana fueron otorgadas a través de la ley minera aprobada en 1992 durante el gobierno de Carlos Salinas de Gortari. En esa época, México se convirtió en uno de los países con mayores facilidades para la extracción de minerales, sin dejar beneficios significativos para el pueblo mexicano. Para ello, el gobierno mexicano actual busca establecer desde el fisco un mayor control y prevé incrementar los derechos especiales y extraordinarios sobre minería.
Not to mention the fact that Canadians are legitimately colonizing it.
Have you seen these videos of these white people from Canada moving down to Mexico and teaching each other how to do it and why they should? Listen to this.
Down here is half of what we would pay in Canada, and we moved down here, became mortgage free. We have an incredible rental that we could rent out if we don't want to live in it. We now have a vacation home that's paid off. And Cabo has the hottest rental market in all of Mexico, so you can actually make back 20 to 30% on your house every single year. No rental restrictions. Number two, we wanted our daughter to learn a second language, and we wanted to bring her to a place where we believed in the education system. And so we love the IB school that she goes to. And Izzy, do you speak Spanish?
Sí.
You want to say something?
Sí. Hola.
Canadians going down to Mexico and gentrifying the area is becoming a real problem. I've already made videos about so many Canadians moving down to Mexico that they are developing areas called the New Vancouver. Seriously, this is new age colonization. Through these videos, white people are showing each other how to go to other countries and get the most bang for their buck and not caring about how they displace the locals. Seriously, there's no new ideas from white people. They just go somewhere, displace the locals, take the land, and then when prices get too high for them, it's just start the pattern again.
So, well, on one hand, Mexico is perfectly fine to take all of their valuable resources and buy and commodify and gentrify their land, very similarly to what is happening in Hawaii. Fuck the police. Hey, fuck the police. And then on the other hand, saying that Canada shouldn't be compared to Mexico because apparently Mexico is so terrible, even though, again, we're buying up a bunch of their mines and their land. Make it make sense. With how the federal Liberals have been pushing and trying to cater to the Conservative Party, the official opposition party of Canada currently, I worry that the Liberal Party is going to continue to push further right to try to cater to the opposition party right now, especially with Pierre Poilievre currently threatening to try to do another confidence vote against Justin Trudeau, which would trigger an election in Canada in the next couple of weeks. I fear that Justin Trudeau is going to roll over and show his belly to both the Conservative Party of Canada as well as the Republican Party, currently led by the MAGA movement in America as well, which is something that we've already seen very recently with the Democrats in America, again, trying to court people on the right, on the more conservative side with the Republicans by trying to have more moderate stances on immigration. Like, the Liberal Party has already, in the last year alone, gone further right on immigration, banning specific temporary immigrants from coming to this country, specifically temporary foreign workers and international students, and even going so far as to cap immigration by 50%. Claiming to be doing all of this to try to solve the housing crisis and the cost of living crisis, while completely ignoring the fact that a third of houses currently available in Canada are owned by investors. Investors who are also hoarding these houses, not selling them because they want the prices to go up so that they make more money off of these houses. And the fact that we have NIMBY premiers, again, like Doug Ford, who have been pushing back against housing initiatives, fighting every single fourplex that he can find, as well as other conservative premiers who are also contributing to this housing sabotage. Not only that, but now, recently, people are trying to blame temporary foreign workers, international students, and an influx of immigrants on the medical crisis as well. Even though, again, these crises are being caused and made worse by premiers like Doug Ford, who has passed bills like Bill 60, the Your Health Act, and other bills that were designed to push for more privatization in Canada's healthcare system, something that we are literally known for. We are literally known for having free healthcare, and premiers like Doug Ford are trying to ruin something that is fundamentally Canadian and make it more privatized and therefore more Americanized. I honestly really hope that the federal government doesn't bend the knee to Donald Trump and the Republican Party in America and caters to their every whim just to save the Canadian economy, especially with what the federal Liberals and the Deputy Prime Minister, Christina Freeland, has already said about potential migrants coming from the Trump mass deportation plan.
What is your message to people who might consider fleeing to Canada?
My message is that Canada controls our borders, that every Canadian has the absolute right to expect that our country chooses who comes here and who doesn't. That fundamental control is the underpinning of Canada being the country who we are, which is at our core a country that has grown thanks to immigrants and immigration. But you can only do that if Canadians know that we control our borders, we control who comes here, and crucially, we control who doesn't.
My question is your message to the outside world, because last time Donald Trump instituted a dramatic policy, 2017, the Prime Minister tweeted, "To those fleeing persecution, terror, and war, Canada welcomes you." What is your message to people who would try to get into Canada now?
My message today is Canada has an excellent immigration system. We are a country that welcomes new Canadians because we know the value they bring, but we welcome them in an organized, systematic way.
I find it very unlikely that Justin Trudeau and the rest of the federal Liberals are actually going to stand their ground like the leaders of Mexico have, and are indeed going to completely cater to the Republican Party. So I hope I shed a light for a lot of Canadians who might not have known that currently Canada is actually trying to actively colonize Mexico by buying up a bunch of land, by gentrifying the areas, by buying mines and valuable resources, in a very similar way to how a lot of Americans are continuing to colonize places like Hawaii. I also wanted to say thank you to my friend who I would not have been able to make this video without. A lot of these articles that I used in this video were sent to me by a friend of mine who is actually from Mexico herself. I honestly found it extremely difficult to even find any information on what Canada is currently doing to Mexico. Articles and news stories that I hope helped shed a light on how Canada has been not only dragging Mexico's name in the dirt, but also treating Mexico like Canada's very own game of Monopoly. If it wasn't for my friend, I definitely wouldn't have been able to gather up as much information as I could for this video. And I hope that you tune in for a couple other video essays that I have been currently working on for a while. One of them about a couple Canadian bills, Bill C-11 and Bill C-18, and the other about the rise in anti-immigration sentiment in Canada, as well as one kind of a little intro to Per Poilievre, our current opposition leader and the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. So that's it again for the video. Please do all the weird stuff that influencers tell you to do, like comment, subscribe, whatever. Or like, you know, do that too. Or don't like it, dislike it, do whatever you want. Engagement is engagement. Hopefully I will also have my other hats and wigs and everything else unpacked.